Okay, we've got all our bucket of questions, and I'll call it a bucket of questions because we've got a collection of questions. And now we're going to structure the questionnaire itself, and what should be in it. Some things to think about is, can the sequence of questions, sections of questions, alter the questionnaires' usefulness? It might. And what do I need other than the questions? Well, as it turns out, quite a bit. In the structure of a questionnaire, the first thing is there are no universal principles about what is a good structure. It's simply you structure it and you have a look and see what the effect of it is. There are guidelines though, and the guidelines are: make it easy to administer, make it easy to read, use informative instructions, make it easy to transfer the answers for analysis, avoid biasing the questions due to their order. And there's something later in the section about that. It should be like an interesting conversation that benefits the participant as well as the researcher. Always remember that a survey, a questionnaire, is very much a conversation, and it should be treated like a conversation. And it happens that you have the opportunity to plan it all out. Now, components of the question. There is the introduction. Their purpose is to establish rapport with the participant and to provide sufficient information to allow an informed decision whether to participate or not. This now is a requirement of pretty much all questionnaires, and if you're doing a questionnaire out of this university, certainly informed consent is absolutely necessary. So that means you have to inform the person of the research, the purpose of the research, their participation, whether they can opt out at any time, which they always can, and request their consent to participate in the research. You must provide an estimation of how long it will take to complete the survey. You normally would request complete and candid answers, so tell them what you're expecting them to say. If you're expecting them to lie in their teeth, then say so. If you're expecting merely their opinions, then say that. Assure the participant of confidentiality, and the other one is non-attribution. Non-attribution is that you record the answer faithfully, but you'll disguise who they came from. So that it's important when you're dealing with companies, for example, that there may be something come out which the company formally doesn't like. Well, you don't want that being able to be tracked back to the person who said it. You've got to protect your sources better than that. And the last thing you have to do is, having done all that, you request their participation. So that's the introduction section to it. Now, there's an example introduction. I had to persuade the people to participate in this. Right? So I wanted to put out a survey to the SPICE user group. Now, SPICE stands for Software Process Improvement and Capability Determination. So these are the people who do process assessment. It's nothing to do with the SPICE trade or flavors in food. So the introduction was, as it's there, we really do appreciate the time you take to respond to the survey, and you probably have more urgent matters demanding your attention. Right? So people are busy, and I have to acknowledge that. But we're acutely aware of how little evidence we have supporting some project management practices, and we're trying to correct this. So if you can spare 20 or 30 minutes, we would appreciate it. Right? So we want to know about project management practices, and the estimate was it's going to take 20 or 30 minutes. All right. About this survey. The survey seeks information on how much effort goes into coordinating different aspects of software development with other members of the project team, etc., etc. So I'm telling them about the survey. Now there was another page and a half of this, so people could read this and decide what the research was about, and decide whether they want to be bothered with me or with the survey. That was the introduction. Once you've got the introduction over, we usually come into the substantive section. This is where the questions are themselves, and they contain the questions critical to the research. You can have several sections. There are sections which are what will be called filter questions that minimize the participants' participation. So it's kind of like, well, do you do A? No? Go to section 5. So that's a question that's to do with the survey itself, not to do with getting the information you want. You use filter questions for navigating through the questionnaire. Normally you'd collect related questions together in one section of the survey. So if you're asking about, I don't know, large projects, you might collect all your questions about large projects in one place. You might then collect your questions about small projects in a different place. Or if you're asking about the skills of people on the team, skills questions in one place, qualification section, qualification questions in the second place. And funnel questions are a collection of questions that gradually focus on one particular topic. Now these are particularly useful when you want to ask a very detailed question, but you have to set it up. You have to get the context through. So you might ask a series of questions that gradually dive deeper and deeper into something until you can finally ask the question right at the very detailed question right at the center of it all. That's called funnel questions. You funnel the results down. Grouping questions. There are mixed feelings on it. Some people argue that the questions ought not be grouped. This avoids bias, you get a fresh response. Other people say grouping is necessary in some circumstances. When the questions require very little thought, there are advantages to not grouping them. This is because you can test whether related questions are asked consistently, so you've got a validity check in there. But when the questions require a certain amount of thinking about them, you're probably better to group them so that the person that's got the time to build up understanding of the context of the questions and then answer several questions about that context. So grouping can lead the participant into a subject. So you get a series of related questions, help to ease the participants into a topic. It allows them deeper explorations and it allows a gradual focus. Grouping also helps branching around irrelevant questions, and believe me, nobody likes to answer irrelevant questions. So here's an example of how you can group questions to get your completely distorted answers. Now, I did manage to find this on YouTube. It's a particular sequence from the series Yes Minister, where Sir Humphrey Appleby is asking Bernard about a survey to demonstrate that opinion polls can be constructed to get whatever answer you want. And the sequence goes, Mr. Woolley, are you worried about the rising crime among teenagers? Yes. Do you think there's a lack of discipline and vigorous training in our comprehensive schools? Well, yes. Do you think young people welcome some structure and leadership in their lives? Yes. Do they respond to a challenge? Yes. Might you be in favour of reintroducing national service? I might be. Yes or no? Yes. And what else could he answer? He's gone through saying that the young kids are lacking in discipline and need a bit of training and structure in their lives, and okay, well, instead of having them standing around the streets, we'll put them in national service. Surely you agree with that. And of course he did. Humphrey then goes on to reach the opposite conclusion. Mr. Woolley, are you worried about the danger of war? Yes. Are you unhappy with the growth of armaments? Yes. Do you think there's a danger in giving young people guns and teaching them how to kill? Yes. Do you think it's wrong to force people to take arms against their will? Yes. Would you oppose the reintroduction of conscription? Yes. There you are, Bernard. Got the answer you wanted. And that, you can do it deliberately if you want, but given that you're supposed to be doing unbiased research, it's better if you don't. But it is possible to do that by accident. Now the classification section you should have in your survey. Most people will have it. Sometimes called the demographics. This usually it comes either at the beginning or the end, not usually in the middle. These are questions you might ask about the participant or the organisation, so that you've got some idea how it fits into the general scheme of things. It's rare that we don't ask demographic questions, but please don't ask questions you don't need to. For example, if I'm asking about software development methods, I'm probably not too concerned about the age of the person, and I probably wouldn't record what gender they are either. It doesn't matter. But I might record information about the organisation size, because that can materially alter things. So ask what demographics you need, but no more. You will need instructions. These would normally come at the beginning, and these are instructions on how you expect people to answer. So how to record the answers. If you were there doing an interview, it's easy. You just they talk to you. But if it's a self-administered questionnaire, how do they record the answers? Did they write on the bit of paper you've given them? Do they type in the survey that you told them? And now with things like Google Forms and SurveyMonkey, it's pretty easy. You don't have to worry about that, because the survey takes care of that and gives you the answer. But if you are using a paper-based survey, then people may need to know, what do I do? Where do I record the answers, and what do I do with it when I've finished? So you need the instructions about that. You also may need instructions about whether you want more than one answer or one answer only. Now this comes in. There's some circumstances where I think an example might be the number of different techniques that somebody might use in software development. Now, there's a great deal of difference between which technique do you most frequently use, or which techniques do you use at all. You really have to tell people whether you want the most applicable answer, and one only, or they can answer as many times as they wish. They can tick off as many of the possible answers as they need. So those sort of instructions are necessary. You also ought to say whether it's permissible or even desirable to go and talk to someone else before answering the question. Sometimes it matters. The other thing is, if they're not sure of the question, can they get clarification? And if so, from whom? So just to review, the survey construction process is you review the information requirements, you develop the prioritized list of survey questions. We do this in a two-step process. You develop the candidate questions, question classifications. Then you develop draft questions and refine those and eventually get them done. You evaluate each potential survey question. You determine the type of question to be asked, open, closed, and if so, what answers you want. Decide the specific wording of the question. Determine the structure of the questionnaire. Now go and evaluate it. Go and check it out. Test it out. So the next piece is to evaluate the questionnaire.